Good Wednesday evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls, and it has been a very active day across the area today. A lot of it all because of this low pressure system that has been very quickly making its way across the area and marching to the east, triggering severe thunderstorms. We've had lots of warnings today. We've had several tornadoes, several confirmed tornadoes, not here locally, but I mean in the vicinity of this cold front that's marching to the east because of that low pressure system. So the satellite and radar here, big picture. Again, it's really just this one frontal boundary that's causing all of the havoc out there this evening and tonight. If we zoom things in, stretching from places like Detroit all the way down into Ohio, through portions of Cleveland, Columbus, down toward Lexington, Kentucky, and then all the way down to Nashville, we have a line of severe thunderstorms that are rolling through, and they're just going to continue to march eastward through the evening and the overnight before finally beginning to weaken as we're starting to lose some of that daytime heating. But regardless, it's been a dangerous night for many locations, including right here at home. We've had several severe thunderstorms that rolled through during the afternoon, just as this low pressure system was really beginning to gain some steam. But we had a lot of heat today. We had a lot of humidity around as well to fuel those storms. And there was a little extra spin in the atmosphere. So we actually had several reports of funnel clouds as well. But a funnel cloud, remember, that circulation doesn't quite reach the ground. So it's not technically considered a tornado, because for that to happen, you need to have that circulation from the cloud all the way down to the ground. And with a funnel cloud, it stays elevated. If we zoom things in, a big problem that we've had today has been all about the water, the rain that's been falling down. We've had very heavy downpours across portions of the area. So all of the green shading that you're seeing here, those are some sort of flood headline, whether that's a flood advisory, a flash flood warning that we've had, several of those actually today, or an aerial flood watch. That's what we're going to be dealing with throughout the rest of this evening. We still have rain coming down. We actually have heavy downpours across portions of the area, mainly in central and southern Cook County. You can still see all of the reds, the yellows, the oranges showing up from the south side of Chicago down toward Oak Lawn, Blue Island area, Bridgeview, Midway. Been seeing some very, very heavy rain. And this has been ongoing for a couple hours. So several locations have picked up as much as 2 to 3 inches per hour today, with some of those heavier downpours, especially the slower moving ones. So for that reason, that's why we're talking about flood watches out there. So on this map, through Cook County, DuPage County, down into Kendall, Grundy, Will, as well as Kankakee, notice how those regions are completely shaded in a dark green color. That's a flood watch that's expected to now remain in effect until 10 p.m. Originally, that was expected to expire right at 8, but with the rain still falling and still some heavy downpours, we are still concerned about flooding going into the next couple of hours. And zooming things in specifically to southwestern Cook County and portions of DuPage County here, what I want you to focus in on this map is that teal polygon that's showing up. So basically stretching from Downers Grove down toward Lamont, over toward Palos Park, Oak Lawn, and then up toward Cicero. This is a flash flood warning because either flash flooding is already occurring or it's expected to happen momentarily. So a lot of low-lying areas, we've been seeing reports of standing water. And of course, as we always say, turn around, don't drown. You do not want to drive your car through any standing water because you can't really tell how deep it is or what's in that water. Zooming things out, McHenry County, northern DeKalb County. You can see that you're highlighted here in a thinner green line. I know all of these green boxes and lines get kind of confusing. That's why I'm breaking them all down for you. This is a flood advisory that's expected to remain in effect until 8:30, so only a little bit longer for places like Harvard that was seeing torrential downpours for about an hour to an hour and a half previously. We picked up several inches of rain there as well. We should start to see some relief soon as we still have scattered showers around, but I think the heaviest stuff, it is almost out of the area. It's going to move out over the lake over the next hour or so. Jumping down to the tropics. So the very first hurricane of the season to make landfall is expected tonight or very early morning tomorrow. We have Hurricane Erick that has actually really strengthened over the last 24 hours. When I was talking to you 24 hours ago, from right now, this was only a tropical storm with maximum sustained winds right around 50 miles per hour. But today, those winds are up to 120 miles per hour, and it's moving northwesterly at about 9 miles per hour. And you can notice the structure of this storm too. Notice how it's in that really tight circulation. We have the eye wall very well defined here. It's not a very large eye, but it's very tight. We're likely going to see an eye wall replacement cycle happening here very soon. And what does this mean as far as what category are we in now? Well, it all comes down to the wind speed. So right now we have Hurricane Erick with 120-mile-per-hour sustained winds. That's putting us at a Category 3, kind of right smack dab in the middle there, which means devastating damage is expected to occur. And unfortunately, this thing is really barreling down on the southern coast of Mexico, and it's expected to make landfall sometime either late tonight or during the first portion of the day tomorrow. So take a look at this map here, this cone coming in from the National Hurricane Center. This is where these forecasts are generated from. If we zoom things in, we have that Category 3. It's likely going to maintain its strength as it approaches the coast late tonight into early morning on Thursday, because water temperatures are well into the 80s close to the coast. So that's certainly going to be enough to sustain this storm and allow it to keep its strength. And there's not a lot of wind shear in the atmosphere in this area. So typically wind shear, that's something that can just sort of peel apart a tropical storm or a hurricane. It can rip it right apart from the top to the bottom based on how much wind shear you have. Well, we don't have a lot right now. So unfortunately, in this region, we are likely going to see devastating impacts. And one of the biggest concerns, on top of the really high wind, you're going to have that wind damage, but is all of the rain. Some portions of Mexico going to be picking up as much as 8 to 10 inches of rain. And just right inland from the coast, you have really rugged terrain. So a big concern is going to be mudslides, and that, of course, can be devastating to communities. So that's really going to be something that we're going to have to watch out for tonight, going into tomorrow, and even probably into the day on Friday, too. This system is still going to be around the region, and while it's no longer going to be a major wind producer by the end of this week, it's still going to be a rain producer. So that's kind of the worst deal I think that we're going to be dealing with in this region, is going to be the potential for those mudslides and all of that flooding because of that mountainous terrain. Now, here at home, things have been much calmer. We're not dealing with any sort of things like the tropics are, of course, and the winds haven't been all that bad. But of course, we did have those showers and thunderstorms rolling through today during the mid-afternoon. Prior to those storms hitting, we actually made it into the 80s today. So our temperatures, they did overperform. We hit 81 degrees. That's very seasonable for this time of the year. Your average high for this time of the year is 81 degrees. Now, we did overperform when it came to our low temperatures. We woke up right around 70 degrees. Average is 62. And if you like the heat, you're going to love the forecast going into this upcoming weekend. And next week especially, we have an actual heat wave, which, by the way, is defined as 3 or 4 strung together days in the 90s. That's what we're going to see this weekend and next week. So unfortunately, for folks that do not have AC, you're really going to have to find ways to stay cool. I'm going to break down all those details for you on the heat wave, as well as just how hot it's going to be once you factor in that humidity, coming up right after this break. Welcome back. Now that we have today's storms kind of out of the way for those of us here in the Chicagoland area, it's kind of turning to be all about the heat now. Looking forward to this upcoming weekend. We've been talking about the potential for this heat wave for about a week now, and it is just about here. So for those of you that like the heat, you like the humidity, you're going to love the forecast this weekend. Notice how temperatures by Saturday, Sunday, and Monday are expected to soar into the mid-90s. That is way above average for this time of the year. Of course, not unheard of, though, this time of June, and then definitely into July. You know, it's not unheard of to get these string of 90-degree days, but that's exactly what's heading our direction. Now, what's going to make a huge difference for us is the humidity levels. So dew point temperatures may be rising into the 70s this weekend. And to put that number in perspective, anytime dew point temps are in the 60s, that's when you start to notice the humidity. That's when it starts to feel a little sticky outside, you know, just a little uncomfortable. Whenever dew points are in the 70s, that's when it almost kind of feels like the air is thick, like it's harder to breathe a little bit. That's what you're going to be dealing with going into this weekend. So very high humidity, and that allows our bodies to not be able to cool down quite as quickly. That's when we start talking about the heat index, and that's why it's going to feel warmer than what it is, because that high humidity is going to slow down our evaporation process when we sweat. So that's going to keep our bodies feeling a little bit hotter. So this map here is representing our heat risk for Saturday. So this is a product that comes from the National Weather Service, and essentially it takes into account a couple different things. One big thing being heat-related illnesses and how that can impact a population. So all of the colors that you're seeing here have a meaning. Most notably, the reds and the purples that you're seeing showing up here, this is our heat risk for Saturday, and it appears that we are in the major or extreme category here locally in the Chicagoland area. This also stretches all the way up into southern Wisconsin, back into Iowa. And again, that humidity, that's going to be building going throughout the weekend. So on Saturday, it's going to be kind of rough around here, but on Sunday, it could potentially be even worse. And then you'll notice here how on this heat risk map, jumping ahead to Sunday, it begins to shift off toward the east. So for those of you that may be joining us in places like Detroit, you could be dealing with some very extreme heat going into Sunday as well, because you too are going to have temperatures soaring into the 90s. That humidity is going to be really high. So heat-related illness is really going to be a pretty big concern for many folks around the Midwest, not just here locally, but all of the Midwest, and then eventually off toward the north and the east. We're going to see that heat kind of making its way eastward going into early next week. And for us locally, it's not just Saturday, Sunday, and Monday that we have temperatures in the 90s. We're going to take this all the way into the middle of next week, likely until Wednesday, possibly even Thursday. We're going to have high temperatures that are likely well into the 90s. So your temperature outlook, this is from June 24th through the 28th. And what I want you to take away from this map is notice how it's cooler across the western half, warmer across the eastern half of the continental United States. So it's coming down to a trough, which is a dip in the jet stream. That's what we're going to see over the western half of the U.S., where you see that blue shading and the gray shading. So typically when you have a really strong trough, you're going to get a very strong ridge in response to that. So that ridge is going to be over the eastern half of the U.S., and that allows southern air to move northward. So that's why we're going to have this dome of heat expected going into early next week. That's likely going to last through the week. And then this map is the temperature outlook all the way into the very beginning of July. So for those of you that are already kind of dabbling into your 4th of July plans, wondering what the temperatures are going to be like, as of now, it's looking like at least through July 2nd, so leading right up to the holiday, there's a really good chance that we're still going to be experiencing above average temperatures. Now, does that mean we're going to be in the 90s? No, but it at least means that we could be in the 80s, if not well into the 80s, approaching the holiday weekend. So Futurecast, here's our low pressure system that's really been bringing us all of the stormy activity today. That takes off tonight, but tomorrow morning, you still could be waking up to scattered showers around the region. And something that we're still trying to really nail down with the forecast is whether or not we're going to stay dry on Friday. So there is a weak little disturbance that's going to try to move in on Friday. And if that does happen, that is going to impact the temperatures, but only for Friday, not so much for this weekend. Of course, I'll have a deep dive into your local forecast coming up very soon on the news at 9. We'll see you then.